Jeremiah Wheeler is with DRN and our lead sponsor for the Auto FinCon, and he's enlisted the help of a great panel to get things started for us as we make the transition into the early afternoon. If you would, please join me in welcoming Jeremiah Wheeler and DRN and his team to the stage this afternoon. Jeremiah?
Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming out and enjoying this great venue, great weather that we're having out here in California. It's always easy for me to take a trip out to California because the weather is awesome. I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Jeremiah Wheeler. I'm the Executive Vice President and General Manager of FinTech for DRN. And I wanted to introduce our panelists today of lenders that we will go through some topics I think that are at the kind of top of everyone's mind, and let you guys introduce yourself.
I'm Rod Ahrens, Vice President of Service Center Operations with World Omni Financial.
Great. Chris Mitchum, Senior Vice President with Pelican Auto Finance.
And Jose Esparza, Senior Director of Recovery for Ally Financial.
Thanks a lot. So we'll dive right in. First of all, thank you guys for being here. Thank you for agreeing to be on the panel. Really look forward to all the insight that we can share. Look forward also to some questions from the audience when we get towards the end of wrapping up. So we'll start with Rod. We'll start with you. Question is, how has data affected the way that you make decisions in your organization regarding collections so far this year? And, what are some positive impacts, negative impacts that you've seen throughout the year on those, on the big data and crunching the numbers?
Right. That's big data for us is, it's becoming more and more important, probably for most of us in the room. There's another session and another track. I think the title was Oceans of Data with Puddles of Information. I think that kind of characterizes it perfectly. There's so much data out there, but how do you make it usable? How do you leverage that data? How do you truly bring it in where you can start making strategy decisions, more informed decisions, less sort of hunch decisions, and getting more into database decisions and even to ROI justifications. But that's probably one of the biggest areas of focus for us this year and going forward. We've created an entire data analysis, data management division. And they're really at the point now where they're just building that data structure, identifying data sources, identifying metrics and key performance indicators, and then really building that structure so that we don't have to rely on spreadsheets, which we love spreadsheets, love macros and Excel, but we want to have that data housed, have it defined from many different data sources, homogenize that data, and really be able to leverage it and move forward. That's our huge focus for this year and moving forward, is really focused on the data. And we obviously use that in the collections environment and really all of our processing areas to get back to those decisions based on data. What is the data telling us? We want to be able to do that much more fluently in the future.
Got it.
So.
Yeah. Go on, Jose.
I was going to say, so similarly, we're fortunate at the Ally that we have kind of our own internal strategy and reporting team that definitely offer the services back to the operation that helps us make some of those decisions. But I think one of the challenges is taking the mass amount of data that's available and kind of aggregating it together, sorting it out, and then trying to appropriately disseminate it back within the business and understanding at what level what information is pertinent to a front-end collector that maybe is your primary touch point for your consumer base versus their manager versus the operations managers within the department, all the way up to maybe the data that I'm looking at is probably cut and viewed differently. I want to get contact information, whether it be good phone numbers, good addresses, down to the frontline associates, but at my level, I'm probably looking at more of a batch performance metrics and things of that nature. And so being able to take all of that information and having the infrastructure in place to appropriately leverage it for your individual business needs is kind of one of the most important things that I think we've identified and will continue to kind of focus on going into 2018.
I think one thing that's really exciting to see over the past couple years, at least, I've had an opportunity in the past to work in risk management and other analytical services and in other channels in auto. And when you come to auto and you're starting to see companies, even larger companies that perhaps just haven't done it in the past, really start to embrace BI and how you can bring your data warehouse to the next level just by trying different analytics tools. Obviously, there's a lot of BI solutions out there, some more expensive than others, but even a reasonably priced BI tool for a smaller finance company like ours, right, can make all the difference. So one thing we've really worked on this year is is trying to take that data where we always use it for current delinquent accounts, right? What are you doing to affect delinquency now? But what we've focused on this year is how can we take that data and really start focusing on leading indicators of delinquency, right? How can we get in front of what's happening and understand our roll rates and cure rates at a different level, right? So really trying to find like cohorts of customers and even by what type of vehicles they have or when were they originated or geography. So that's really what we focused on this year, is trying to dissect that further to say maybe our collection practices are different, how we use our dialer. Obviously, as a smaller finance company than you two guys, it's we don't have a statistician on staff, right? So when we kind of get together and put our heads together and say, okay, what's our dialer strategy going to be, right? And we really try to do our best to get inside that data as best as possible. And with software going, it is where it's at, and dialer solutions, you really have a lot more power at your hands, even as a smaller company, to start making better informed decisions on your collection practices and how you use it.
Got it. So I want to turn the heat up on that same question a little bit, because I think, the end of the question was, what positive impacts have you guys seen? I want you to tell some of your secrets. That's the point. That's why we're all here. So we'll start with you, Jose.
Yeah. So
tell us kind of what all the things that you guys have done and doing, and how you crunch your data, and how you kind of want your data delivered from your teams. And I know your strategy teams are different, obviously, and how they crunch it. But what positive impacts have you seen from some of those changes that you guys have made over the years?
So there's a multitude of different kind of benefits that I think you can at least highlight from an Ally perspective, but picking up on a few is actually leveraging some data and information that we maybe otherwise haven't used from a recovery perspective. There's some vendor partners out there that we've entered relationships with that are helping us identify maybe gaps within our recovery efforts, either through being more efficient with our account placements out at vendors that are specialized in doing or have really good success at one type of loss comparatively to another, as well as vendors on the other side that are helping us have a little bit more transparency in the actual collateral that we have, and helping us making sure that it was priced appropriately at the time of originations, and if not, working with our sales and originations team to kind of offset that from what we funded it at comparatively to maybe what we ended up taking a loss on an account should it have gotten that way. With all of which have helped us not only grow our recoveries, which is ultimately I think one of the things that we try to strive to do, but additionally improving the OpEx associated with pursuit of that recovery effort, because the ability to have the technology solutions through all the various vendor partners' data allows us to take a step back and look at the entire servicing platform within Ally and saying, okay, where can we gain efficiencies? And we've been able to do that within 2017, and I think we're really excited about where we're going within 2018.
Thanks.
All right, so we've really had a lot of quantitative savings this year based on the focus I was mentioning, especially on the recovery side. Getting into that data, utilizing your vendors too more. We have all these vendors we use, and we reach out and we talk, but we focused this year to say, what are the best practices of people who use DRN, right? Who use, a texting or an insurance tracking, and so to partner with those vendors and take the information back. We've had significant savings in our recovery efforts this year. Materially have changed, for instance, days out to repo by leveraging our GPS vendors where available more and utilizing the full suite of their tools, right? I mean, there's so many things you can do with these tools, and you might have a staff kind of working, DRN data or GPS or insurance or whatever, and they kind of get to the day-to-day, but I think it's incumbent on us a little bit to pressure them to fully utilize every single tool. And when we put that pressure on the staff, we saw amazing changes in our days out to repo, which ultimately helped severity on that, which as I'm sure everyone's experience is a little bit high this year. So, it's been a real focus of ours to cut those expenses, as much as possible where we can. And a lot of it is as simple as just, using the tools, like they're supposed to be used, or doing those extra things. DRN, for instance, has got a great tool that alerts you for, if the car's in impound or has been stolen or whatever. So we get those stolen alerts before, and typically we would just follow up with the customer, or send those down, or frankly not use them. This year we've been focused on getting that to an insurance company, talking with our insurance tracking partner, Allied, and how can we really take that and have some action to it. Because sometimes you might not be able to get in touch with a customer, right? So at least for us in a deep subprime space, so leveraging that information from vendor to vendor and having them help us out. We've had amazing savings both in OpEx and just efficiencies. Even though you're using more tools, it becomes more efficient because you're not, doing so much, blocking and tackling on stuff versus just trying to be efficient using the tools better.
Yeah, we've, this year particularly, it's really gone on for several years. We work very closely with our risk management department, operations and risk management. We're always running champion challengers in terms of our dialer strategy, how the accounts are placed, what the roll points are from front end to back end collection. We always have a champion, always have a challenger, and we review that performance on at least a quarterly basis. We'll meet formally with risk management twice a year to really dive in and look at, how is it performing? Do we need to make any tweaks, sort of subtle tweaks to that? And I'd mentioned earlier, we kind of have to check our experience at the door. We do that in a disciplined way, but we want to make sure that we're not always following a hunch. There's a lot of experience in that room when we all meet, but we definitely want to focus more on the data-based decisions so that we know that here's what the numbers are telling us, here's what we should do, as opposed to operating with a hunch as we probably all did earlier in our careers. But really focus on that. We've also, I mentioned all the different data sources that are out there, but what we've tried to do is really leverage those and bring them together. So you've got comp reports from your data, skip data providers. We've recently brought in the historical LPR data from DRN, able to combine those, and it really adds value to both of those data sets. You've got a list of 10 addresses, for example, out of a comp report, but you see historical plate hits in one area. It's obviously going to elevate the value of that one or two addresses that are in that area. So and that's been very positive for us. We've seen some good results there, both in pre-charge-off and post-charge-off results. But that's really what we've done in terms of positives in collections.
Okay, thanks. So on to the next question. So are you guys, what are you guys looking at for 2018? Are you looking at any different data strategy changes around the platforms that you're using to access, integrate, house, and collect all of that data, to analyze it, to produce some results for both your recovery team, your collections team? What's on the horizon for you guys? And we'll start with you, Chris.
We have a lot of projects on the horizon. Sometimes I think it's too many.
Without violating any NDAs.
Yeah. As I mentioned, we've really worked this year to just get more into the tools we have and how can we use them earlier in collections. But through that and through the use of these tools, you start saying, why can't we have this automatically pushing in via an API to our CRM, right? And we have a call, well, you can, it's just as easy as calling Germwise. We can make that happen, right? Or Allied or other groups that we do business with. And so that's what we're going to focus on, is integrating as much as we can into our collection system to help alert our frontline collectors. Because, sure, you can do it in your risk management group or your recovery group, but, when they're touching stuff, oftentimes it's too late, right? So if we can get that information out to our early stage collectors or even care calls, and we know, hey, there's been some alert on this, so they have it, or it's branded in the notes for whatever reason, it helps make that next contact with your customer even more efficient and impactful, right? And that's really what we're trying to focus on, especially in deep subprime, is saying, every conversation you have with a customer has to be a good conversation, talking about delinquency and curing the account. And the more information we have, especially whether it be location information or things going on or lack of insurance, and sure, they can go to the collateral tab and whatever that they're working on and see if it's active or not, and maybe there's a pop-up, maybe there's not, but so we're working on having alerts and pop-ups and notes and everything to give into our collectors, even in early stage, where when they have a call, they know exactly what's going on with this customer. There are questions they need to be asking in regards to, why is your insurance, maybe your deductibles are too high, right? Let's talk to them about that and maybe get them to change their deductibles back to where we want them to be, or your location's different. Have you moved, right? Those questions that they might not ask, because when you validate a customer and they give you their address, maybe they're just giving you addresses on site, it might not be where they live anymore, at least for our customer set. So for us, having that data available just by, again, integration in, so we're integrating DRN, our recovery platform we use. We're a Cars iBeam customer, and they do great for us, and they're helping us pull information in, information from our forwarders, Ally from our insurance tracking perspective, all those, our texting companies. So all of those people we're talking to currently to have integrated in, to our front-end CRM, including our mobile app, which we launched this year, which has been an incredible success. So we got a lot on the plate.
Yeah, and also to add to that, I think, having that data, all of the different data, I think I've heard it probably 10 or 15 times this week so far, and we're early into this conference week, but I've heard it a few times from a number of lenders that, they don't want their collectors having to log into multiple systems just because it's arduous, it takes time. So having all of that data in one platform like a master queue that pops it right in front of you and says, hey, this is where you need to go, this is what you need to do. Don't look through, in my case, 42 pages of a comp report and try to find where I've gone if I hit, a life situation. It's right there for you. And so, Rod, what are you guys doing in 2018?
For 2018, one of our big focuses, I talked about the data, that's a huge focus for us, but beyond that, more specifically in the operational area and efficiency gains, and certainly the quality assurance side. We've just installed speech analytics, and I know we're probably a little bit behind the curve on that perspective, but we're bringing it in a very disciplined fashion. Any of you who are considering it, one of the first things you have to do is make your staff comfortable with it. We've found that out. They view it kind of as big brother coming in. They're going to record every call. They can do analysis, et cetera. So I think we're beyond that in our change management approach. But through 2018, we're really going to leverage that information to get back to, are there keywords or key phrases that get us a higher promise percentage, and even down to the promise kept percentage, to really focus on those aspects and really leverage that data against another data source. But we can tie that speech analytics data, what's detected there, if we can tie that directly to the account performance, we feel that would make it that much more powerful and really work well for us. So that's going to be a huge focus for us in 2018.
Yeah, that should work really well. Jose?
Yeah, so two immediately come to mind, and one is we're having conversations with DRN in regards to leveraging the information in a manner with which we previously haven't done from an Ally perspective. So we use your historical data for skip tracing, and we use your live for obviously LPR pickup, but I think that there's potential some tangible value there in understanding where our collateral is when we're evaluating, making that decision on whether we want to pursue repossession as a means of trying to resolve the account to avoid the loss, or do we want to go the repossession route. And if we have tangible information where we feel comfortable that we have an idea of maybe where the collateral is or where the consumer is located, maybe we look at allowing the customer a little bit more time associated with trying to find a way to resolve the delinquency, so that it's mutually beneficial. They get to stay in their car versus the alternative, which is the repossession. From that standpoint, it works out well from the consumer base as well as from our side. We get to obviously benefit from an active loan, but we don't incur undue costs associated with trying to mitigate that loss or preventing it from happening. So I think that's something that we're going to continue to at least have discussions on going into 2018. And then you hit on one of the other ones, which is we've recently entered into a partnership with MasterQ as well, because one of the concerns with which I think we've all kind of touched on a little bit is the amount of data that's available from a plethora of different sources can be overwhelming for people to kind of aggregate together. And so finding a way to take that information and systemically sorting through it and picking out what you think is going to add the value comparatively to another, and not burning through cash trying to purchase data that either one you don't use or it's redundant and things of that nature, and then finding a way to push that forward potentially if we can prove out the concept, if it's something that ultimately works for Ally, that will, the collectors can start leveraging, again, all deemed to trying to find ways to work with our customer base to see if they are wanting and willing and able to stay in the vehicle to avoid the ultimate loss, which would be a charge-off.
We're master queue users as well, and another feature that brings to the table, your disparate data sources, it will actually score the effectiveness of those data sources within the tool, so you can see within master queue, this particular data source gets to be more recovery than this one, and you can alter your approach accordingly or sort of prioritize the data sources that way.
Yeah, and we're starting on the back end, obviously, where some of the accounts where the prior methods of servicing haven't necessarily worked, and we think, okay, this is a good area, kind of a playground, if you will, to test the data and the platform itself, and then if we can prove out the concept, hopefully be able to push that forward.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, Rod, you took the words right out of my mouth. That was what Jose was talking about, kind of made me think of. It's really important for us, obviously with lenders having limited resources available to build new things, especially on the collections and recovery side of the house, because obviously we want to originate more loans, and that's kind of the focus of every lender out there. But having that reporting data on which data set is working best for your organization is really important. And when you have 12 or 15 different data sources all plugged into one place, it's really important to analyze it and see what's working best for you.
For sure, we're getting ready to go to master queue, and for all those reasons that you guys talk about, and for us too, it's just efficiencies, because the staff I have, obviously working that as the size of lender we are is not huge, but I'm in deep subprime, so I have a lot of need to skip and to do some of those things. So we're really looking forward to hopefully efficiencies we'll see just from the consolidation of that. We did our bill analysis of all our skip tools, and you go through and you look at how much of this stuff is redundant, being done by this stage of collection. Now it's over here, now it's in skip, and I've run this one report now 3 times within X days. I'm like, why am I doing this? So we're looking forward to those efficiencies for sure.
And you also tend to get, especially if you have a smaller staff, whatever data source worked for them most recently is the one they're going to go to
Right.
first, and that may not always be the right case,
Right.
right? So you want that longer term trend data to figure out, which one you should
To help
use.
drive that waterfall better, right?
Yep.
Well, we're getting close to the end of our session, so I actually had one more question, but I think I'm going to save that and go to the audience. If we have any questions at all in the audience, please, raise your hand, and Bill will get you the microphone so that everyone can hear your question, and we'll try to answer them within our time. If not, if there are no questions, then I'll ask my final question. So regarding your agent network, it's always a talk in the industry of strategy with data analytics and then recovery efforts. And, so in 2018, the rest of the year, this year and 2018, what do you guys see changing? Are there any changes coming to how you manage your recovery network, whether it's forwarding, direct, a mixture of both? How are you using data and analytics to kind of form the best sauce, if you will?
I'll go ahead and start. We're really, I guess, a hybrid. We do both primarily direct assignment on our new assignments. Then when we roll over to the LPR side, we want to get it out into that network. That's really more of a forwarding model, so it is sort of a hybrid. But we certainly look at our repo agent performance, track that very closely. Have a whole set of metrics that we use there to make sure that we're getting the right performance. We're tracking days to recover. All those metrics that you want to make sure that your agents are out there using. And that's really where we use the data is, we try to leverage it as best we can to drive that true performance. There'll be some performance share as well, market share based on performance. But with our footprint, we're in the 5 Southeast states, we have a direct network that doesn't have a lot of overlap, but in those areas that it does, we'll certainly look at the performance data. So.
Yeah, we're direct, and we use forwarders, and it kind of depends on what type of repossession it is and when. But so we'll mix that up. But for us, lately, certainly looking at the data and having those conversations with our forwarding groups, particularly, is really important because we are a smaller player in some markets, and having real quantitative data when you call a forwarder or even an agent, but certainly the forwarders, and saying, hey, look, I'm having this type of success here. We also use you. We want to, have similar success with you, and being able to really call that out and have it in front of you helps us as a smaller lender position ourselves better, right? Because you can call and have a, good conversation with the forwarder and say, look, I only know I'm sending you X volume, but, I'm only sending that X volume to this other guy, and this is where I'm performing. So, for us, that's been really important, and a focus of ours this year is doing that. We're probably not going to change too much going into 18. I think we made a lot of progress in that in 17, and there's great partners here. I mean, we do business with all of them out here, I think, this week. So we're excited to see all those folks here and talk with them a little bit further. And they're doing a great job, and they're staying in front of compliance, which is important, doing all the things that they need to do. So, I've been pretty impressed with our 40 network this year and what they've done, and even things they've done throughout this year to, make their business better. So it's been a good year.
So likewise, Ally uses a direct as well as a 4D model, and we had some reorganizational changes within our structure. So I know the Ally leadership is going to, just like tends to happen, we'll reevaluate and we'll look at what we think is working, maybe what we don't think is working as well as we'd like, and potentially make decisions off of that. But one of the things as it relates to data is one of the things that I found that has worked really well is the transparency. Once you establish what your KPIs are for your line of business, and whether that's a direct model or a 4D model, I think it's applicable across both of them, is we set the standard of what we expect with our service provider, and then we don't mask necessarily how the other vendors are performing in that marketplace, because I'm trying to drive the behaviors that I want, which is obviously higher recoveries, shorter turn times, and what have you. And we find that they all tend to be a little competitive out there, right? And they want to know necessarily what they can do to garner more business from an Ally perspective. And you hit on the market share, right? So once you incorporate the other key attributes like compliance and things of that nature, but you take those performance metrics and you show them if the path associated with if they take A, B, C, and D steps, this is what you can do to potentially garner additional volume within Ally's portfolio, whether it be nationally if they're a forwarder or within a specific market, from that perspective. So I think that's some of the things that have necessarily really kind of worked from an Ally perspective. And as we kind of evaluate everything, and like I said, the Ally leadership looks at our model, I got to imagine it's going to be something that they'll continue to do.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, guys. I know, to your point there, I think competitive landscape is really important. It drives, to some degree, efficiencies, perfection, better results. Competition's good. So you guys using multiple LPR companies to do your business, using multiple forwarders as well as direct agents. We all know that investment strategy 101 is not, don't put all your eggs in one basket. So you got to figure out what works best and what, which performers, work best in which markets, because I think that's really, really important. But thanks a lot for being on the panel. Thanks everyone for joining us, and I'll turn it back over to Bill. Thank you.